Is meditation just an escape from reality? What if awareness is just a subtle way of avoiding life? Narrated by Silent Flame. I'm not here to preach meditation. I'm here to question it. Let me say something uncomfortable. I've meditated for thousands of hours. I've spent weeks in silence, months in solitude, years observing every twitch of the mind. And still, there are days I wonder, what if meditation is just another distraction, a prettier one, a socially acceptable one, a subtler, quieter way of running away? Because let's be honest, for some people, meditation becomes a cave you crawl into, not to see clearly, but to disappear, not to meet the world, but to reject it, not to live deeply, but to bypass the fire of living altogether. So let's ask the question no one wants to ask. Is meditation truly waking up, or is it a spiritual form of falling asleep? The myth of presence and the fear behind it. The word mindfulness is everywhere now: books, apps, corporate seminars. It's painted as a magical balm for anxiety, for stress, for your broken life. But what if presence has become just another addiction? What if being in the now is sometimes just a way to avoid the pain of everything else? You sit, you breathe, you focus, you feel peaceful. You don't think about your debts, your traumas, your regrets. You say, this is awareness. But what if that's just well marketed dissociation? Real presence doesn't feel like escape, it feels like fire. It's not quiet, it's honest. If your now doesn't include your shadow, your grief, your rage, then you're not present. You're just calmly avoiding the parts of yourself that scare you most. The Buddha didn't meditate to relax. Here's what we forget: the Buddha didn't meditate to become peaceful. He meditated to see reality exactly as it is: raw, terrifying, and liberating. He didn't sit under the Bodhi tree looking for serenity. He sat looking straight into birth, old age, sickness, and death, not to escape them, but to understand them so deeply that they would no longer bind him. Modern mindfulness often says, focus on the breath, let thoughts go, feel calm. But the Buddha said, this body is fragile, this world is impermanent, this mind is wild, this clinging is suffering. Now look, true meditation doesn't always feel good. It often hurts because it burns away everything that isn't real. And most of what we cling to feels real. Escapism versus liberation, the razor's edge in practice. Here's the uncomfortable truth: escapism and liberation can look exactly the same on the outside. In both, the meditator may appear calm. In both, the breath may slow. In both, the eyes may close and the world may fall away. But inside, one is dissolving illusion, the other is building a prettier one. I meditate to find peace. Sounds noble, right? But ask yourself, peace from what? And who is the one seeking that peace? If your meditation is a shield, a bubble, a sacred corner where you don't have to feel life, you're not meditating, you're self medicating. Liberation, on the other hand, feels like a slow death at first. It's the death of certainty, of comfort, of the story called me. And from that funeral pyre, clarity rises. You're not escaping pain, you're becoming pain, not drowning in it, but no longer being afraid to feel its heat fully. That's the difference when silence becomes a mask. Let me tell you something personal. There was a time I used meditation as a perfect mask. I'd sit still, unmoved. People thought I was wise, calm, centered, but inside, I was numb. I wasn't facing my pain. I was numbing it beneath a layer of stillness. I wasn't transcending desire. I was too scared to feel it. I wasn't free. I was hiding behind a noble posture. That's when I realized stillness isn't the goal. Stillness is just what happens when you stop lying to yourself.
But if you use stillness to lie more skillfully, you've just made illusion holy. And in that moment, silence becomes not freedom, but a prison. Meditation as a weapon against reality. Here's the paradox: meditation can become the very thing you were trying to escape from. The desire to not think, the need to be peaceful, the obsession with spiritual progress, all of it becomes a new samsara. You start rejecting emotion, judging thoughts, comparing your practice, fearing failure, striving for enlightenment like it's a trophy. And so meditation becomes war against your own humanity. But what if the practice isn't meant to remove your thoughts? What if it's meant to help you see them so clearly they no longer rule you? What if meditation is not about cutting yourself off from reality, but about learning to hold it all without flinching?
The addiction to being spiritual and why it keeps you small. Let's be honest. In today's world, meditation isn't just a practice, it's a brand. I'm a meditator. I do breath work. I chant mantras every morning. I'm more aligned than you. It sneaks in like perfume, subtle, elegant, ego in disguise. And before you know it, your practice isn't about freedom anymore. It's about image, control, identity. You build a spiritual persona, someone who doesn't get angry, doesn't get lost, doesn't need to heal anymore. You become someone who meditates. But here's the problem: if meditation becomes part of your identity, then the ego has won, just wearing white robes now. Liberation has no image. It's not graceful. It doesn't always look wise. Sometimes it looks like trembling, like breaking, like crying in silence at 3 a.m. Meditation that frees you doesn't make you more impressive. It makes you less defined, less explainable, more empty, more real. There's no such thing as correct meditation. Spiritual communities love rules: how to sit, how to breathe, how long, which lineage, which mantra, which cushion. But truth doesn't care about form. You can meditate in a temple or on a toilet. You can sit cross legged or on a hospital bed. You can watch your breath or your grief or the flicker of a candle. And if it burns away illusion, it's the path. But the moment you think, this is the right way, that is the wrong way, you've already left presence and returned to mind. Meditation isn't a technique, it's a willingness to be with what is, to not run, to not fix, to not seek, to simply be, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you're confused, even when silence feels like death, because sometimes it is the death of everything that isn't true. Even enlightenment can be an escape. Here's the most uncomfortable truth I've discovered: even the longing for enlightenment can be a way of running from your life. Think about it. What if enlightenment is just your mind's final trick, the ultimate fantasy, the spiritual finish line you chase, so you never have to fully live now? We tell ourselves, when I'm awakened, I'll finally be whole. When I'm free, I'll finally be safe. When I'm realized, I'll finally stop hurting. But what if that hope is the very thing keeping you fragmented? The Buddha didn't become enlightened to escape suffering. He became enlightened by turning toward it completely, relentlessly, without hope of escaping. So if your meditation is a way to arrive somewhere else, you're not on the path. You're dreaming a different dream and calling it freedom. Meditation as the end of all seeking and the birth of real life. You want to know what real meditation is? It's not peaceful. It's not even pretty. It's not a lifestyle. It's the funeral of your spiritual ambition. It's the moment when you stop looking, stop fixing, stop improving, stop healing, stop reaching for some imagined peak of bliss or purity or light, and instead you sit in the middle of your ordinary life, in the clutter, the cravings, the confusion, and see that nothing has to change. You don't have to be better. You don't have to be pure. You don't even have to be peaceful. You just have to be willing to see without filters, without flinching. That's where the journey ends, and that's where life begins. Not a refuge, but a revelation. Meditation is not a refuge from pain. It's a revelation of what pain truly is, not your enemy, not your flaw, not a problem to fix, but a wave of energy that rises, peaks, and dissolves when met with full awareness. When you stop pushing it away, you stop identifying with it. When you stop identifying with it, you stop suffering. That's the secret. Suffering doesn't end by escaping the storm. It ends when you realize you are not the storm, you are the sky. And that clarity, not escape, is what meditation offers. The final truth, nothing to find, nothing to escape. So is meditation an escape? It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It becomes escape when you meditate for a result, for peace, for bliss, for progress, for enlightenment, for some better version of you. It becomes liberation when you meditate without any of that, just to sit, just to see, just to be with what is. Not trying to go anywhere, not trying to become anyone, not trying to understand, fix, transform, or transcend, because the truth is, there's nothing to escape and nothing to find. Everything you've been looking for was always here, hidden behind the belief that it wasn't. And meditation, at its purest, is simply the moment that belief dies. And the one question that destroys all illusions. If you've made it this far, you don't need me to give you answers. You're already standing in the fire where answers burn away. So I won't leave you with a truth. I'll leave you with a question that has no answer, only depth, a question that doesn't ask your mind to think, but your presence to die a little. Here it is. What are you still running from, even when you're sitting perfectly still? Don't answer it too fast. Don't give it words. Just sit with it. Let it follow you into the cushion, into your breath, into your silence. Because maybe the only difference between escape and enlightenment is the willingness to stay with pain, to stay with doubt, to stay with yourself without the filters of identity, hope, or narrative. The Buddha didn't escape the world, he saw through it. And you, right now, are invited to do the same. I'm silent flame. I don't care if you meditate. I care if you're present, not on a cushion, but in your life, with your fear, inside your breath, because presence isn't something you achieve. It's what remains when you stop trying to be anything else. Subscribe if you're tired of spiritual cliches and ready to walk through the fire of real seeing. Comment your truth below. What are you still running from, even now?